We should mention that almost immediately WWE has to feel some type of way about this in advance of you guys even being on the network, because it comes out that Spike is no longer negotiating with WWE, and Spike releases that information. So just to sort of give some context of what I'm saying there, that eliminates any potential leverage that WWE has with another suitor. So if that other person thinks, oh, well, I need to bring in a strong offer because, hey, I don't want them to stay on Spike, I need them to leave Spike. When Spike comes out and says, hey, we're out, we're not negotiating anymore, it does feel like probably a knife in the back to WWE. And as if that wasn't enough, once you guys make a deal, the last few weeks of Monday Night Raw feature commercials for the new TNA show that's coming to Spike. Vince had to be furious about this, but with all due respect, we've seen this same deal before. You know, we saw once upon a time Fox walk away from WWE for Saturday Night's Main Event back in the day. Certainly NBC did. And even in more recent years, Fox is done with WWE. Did you get any sort of insight in your conversations with Spike about how petty or vengeful or spiteful? I mean, it feels like these guys are playing emotionally a little bit at times here. Did you get any sort of insight on that, Jeff?
At the time, and that's why, here we are, God, Conrad, 20 years later, I've got all kinds of information and feedback, but obviously time passes, stories change, the narrative a little bit. I had no idea at the time just how bad their relationship had gotten. It was ugly. Neither side wanted to play ball. They bought it at a premium. I'll say close to the top of the Attitude Era, and ratings had continually, when you go from a USA network, a top 10, Spike was not a top 10. It was a top 25 network. Most of the time hovered around 20, 21, 22, 23. And so immediately you lose the cue. The ratings went down just by changing networks. Yes, everybody followed them for the most part because wrestling fans do that, but just the ratings were down. And then, I guess you could say the day-to-day competition of the business, because without a number two, there's no such thing as a number one. So, that's just how they bought WCW, and that went away. And so just everything that we know around outside of the WWF Spike relationship, things were trending down in so many ways. And so the relationship had gotten really, really ugly. Now, I had no idea. I will say this, Conrad, as I look on it today, I'm still almost amazed. And I think I got to give, the people in that pitch meeting, myself, my father, Dixie, Zahadi, David Zahadi, when we went into that pitch meeting and knowing what we know now, they were in a horrible relationship as a network with WWE. So professional wrestling was a 4-letter word internally for whatever reason. And for us, for us to go in essentially on a cold pitch, but we had 2, 3, 4 years of producing content. It is, to me, in a lot of ways, freaking amazing that we got the deal. Just because, Conrad, nobody wants to follow, the staple in the industry. But man, it happened, but we weren't aware at all. It was just a bitter deal. And, I know that there were some tits and ass. There were some scantily clad women that Kevin K personally asked the WWE, hey, man, can we kind of not go there? And the following week, Vince made sure there were different camera shots. They had a bunch of FUs going back and forth.
Oh,
again,
wow.
I'm not aware of all this at the time, but yeah, Conrad, it was so ugly. So the commercials that aired, to me, I just thought, of course you're going to do that. And Vince would understand that. Hey, the relationship went south. Spike has to keep on doing their business, and the messaging that was going on internally on Raw, we're moving back to USA Network. That was just kind of the rules of engagement on so many ways. So I'm not sure there was anger on either side. That as far as leaving and doing all this, Vince was smiling from ear to ear. He was getting an enormous raise. And so they were going back, quote unquote, home to where they had been for 10 years or 9 years. Anyway, interesting time that here we are 20 years later. And I have the luxury of looking back at just how important it was, like you said, obviously to TNA, but my career in totality.
I do want to ask, did they feel like, just as a reminder, in 2005 is when the UFC really is leveling up? It's on the success of The Ultimate Fighter. And I know once upon a time, Dana was reluctant to have any sort of crossover because he felt like, there was a lot of, I mean, let's not forget, his partners at the time owned casinos. So they didn't need to have any sort of a suggestion that perhaps the UFC may be fixed because it was such a big component. Gambling was such a big component. So I do feel like he wanted to keep it separate. We heard that in conversations about athletes like Brock Lesnar, or certainly later CM Punk, and maybe most specifically in relative to you is Kurt Angle. So when you have this new UFC relationship, or you have the new Spike relationship, did Spike try to force UFC and TNA together? Was Dana hesitant about that? Was it ever discussed? I only asked because it feels like there was much more of a crossover years later with Bellator than there was in the UFC.
Interesting. I've said this, when my first wife passed, Dana called. He's a hell of a businessman, smart guy, but he's made comments even in the last 12, 24 months. I think in a lot of ways, Dana may have we may have kind of the same mindset. I've always looked at boxing and MMA and wrestling and all that. Sure, it is a male 18 to 35, and wrestling would love to have that. But I do believe there are fight fans and then there are professional wrestling fans. I still don't believe there's a massive crossover at all. And back then in those days, I was more so than anything, sure, I would have taken that, but it was never, hey, we're going to do this with UFC and we're going to do that. And even back then, and I had these conversations with internally Brian Diamond and Scott Fish, and, launching the Ultimate Fighter off the heels of Monday Night Raw was brilliant, but really they took those males 18 to 35. And yes, there are female fans in fight now today, but that's really what they funneled because it was on, it was off prime. It was, in the 11 o'clock Eastern hour. So I wasn't, I wasn't waiting for Kevin K. Hey, we're going to do this big cross promotion. The reason Bellator got so much love, and as you kind of look as things go through, and I think to this day, Viacom, and probably Fox to a certain degree, regret not owning part of UFC, because you look at Fox today, they got in bed with Indy and they own a third of IndyCar racing. Owning the leagues. If the TV is going to be the driver, they're getting some points in that. And I think when you look back on history, Viacom not having ownership of UFC, man, what a missed opportunity. And I think at the time they had they had the chance to get some. So, but no, cross promotion wasn't on my radar, and didn't think it was. I would have loved to have it. I'm not saying that at all, but I didn't think it was a vital cog.
We touched on it several weeks ago. This has got to be that period when you're leaving Fox and you're Foxnet, Fox Sports Net, and you're starting on Spike. You kind of have a bunch of ideas that you may normally want to throw at your program, but now you don't want to necessarily burn them before you get the bigger audience. So do you find yourself just sort of treading water and doggy paddling and just biding time until you're on Spike?
We had to do that from a financial perspective, a cash flow issue, that we kept, running our pay-per-views, but we were in that summer of, we talked about it when we first started the pod. The summer before TNA was a summer of no worries.
Yeah.
This might have been the opposite, the summer of worries, because there was so much anticipation. And look, let's just say we went off Fox Sports Net. We didn't know where we were going to go. We felt comfortable enough to know, okay, not that a sizzle reel is everything, but our reel was impressive. We had traction. We were, financial backers. We had all the pieces of the puzzle. the WGN conversations, and was FX. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Our attorneys and in dealing with certain agents, we had a lot of lines in the water. But did we really know where? Excuse me. Did we really know where we were going to land? Hell no. I mean, we all took the Spike meeting. I don't want to say one of many because it was the big meeting, but we at the time, man, we weren't really sure what's going on. So we also knew, okay, what you just said, getting into the creative, let's kind of figure out without burning through needless cash and burning through storylines that only have an online platform. And an online platform in 06 is completely different than an online platform in 2025 in so many ways. So yeah, we had to I don't want to say we put it neutral, but boy, we were close.
That same night that you guys are debuting a really big show, one of the biggest, probably proudest moments in your career up to that point, it's the debut of TNA on Spike. Are you getting like the family together? Is that something that's appointment television and we're all going to watch? Or is there any sort of celebration or any sort of realization of, oh, we made it? Because this has been the goal from day one. And now you're finally realizing it. Is it a cause for celebration, or is it more like, hey, I'm glad we did it, but now the real work starts. We got to get after it.
So this is October of 2006, right? Yeah.
I thought 5, but okay.
No, 5. Yes. 2005, right? Yes.
Yeah. It's 20-year anniversary today,
Yeah.
people are listening.
Yeah. Cause I said 2026 and that's why I was doing the 20. Okay. But October 2005, Conrad, the excitement, I just can't tell. I can't really put it into words. Orlando Studios, when we brought all the talent together and announced the deal, I mean, Conrad, I really can't put it into words in that excitement. Yes, the talent was excited. But more than anything, Conrad, the emotional
Validation.
well, the emotional bandwidth that we had all been through that had been there since day one, people that knew that, okay, this is great. And I knew, and a few others knew, okay, this turns us into a profitable situation that we have the ability to really get this thing rocking and rolling. Again, this is 05. So you're looking at, in the last 10 years, think of how the business went from the new generation era to then NWO, Nitro, Thunder, Raw, SmackDown, combined rating, whatever number you want to plug in, it had just exploded. So the pay-per-view numbers through the roof, starting the company, going through the Scrooge ordeal and then Panda ordeal and all that. So Conrad, I was so damn happy in so many ways, but I knew for damn sure now the hard work starts. Like, we have to over deliver. I mean, there's no two ways about that, and I was probably, I know I'm a different person in so many ways, but man, you talk about those creative sessions and trying to think through, and, we've got to, again, go back to that. We've talked about it ad nauseum. All right, we've got to do the pay-per-views, but guys, we got to get ratings. Like, if we don't deliver, we're going to stay on Saturday night. And in our very first conversations with Spike, and I don't even know if they said it first, but I know we had brought up, like, hey, what's it going to take for us to get in prime time? We're very happy. We're grateful. We're on Saturday nights, 11 Eastern, 1 hour show. We were super happy, but they knew. And Kevin K sitting back in his chair, kind of a big conference chair in Spike, it's like, Jeff, it would make me nothing. I would be so happy if I'm sitting at a table talking to you saying, hey, we need to get you guys in prime time, but only the numbers will dictate that. And so that's when you go, okay, I don't say careful what you wish for, but you know where I'm going with Conrad. Just the pressure was on immensely. I mean, big time. Cause it was, like as we were with Fox Sports, we're paying you guys. So hey, they were satisfied when the check cleared. and with the Carter family, our group, hey man, they understood, and we try to bring another investor. They knew that they were in for the long haul, willingly understood it's a growth process. Glad that we had the Spike deal, but man, Conrad, we all knew the hard work starts, and I'm talking about Jeremy Borash and Dutch Mantell and just all the internal folks that were working at, Cummings Station, the office in downtown Nashville, the studio, Kevin Sullivan and team. It was, all right, boys, buckle up, because here we go, because the hard work starts now.
I do want to ask, the night that this is airing, the very first episode of TNA on Spike, it's October 1st, 2005. As a reminder, Samoa Joe signed with your company in June of that year, the same month that CM Punk signed with WWE. This is also a year removed from the controversy surrounding Rob Feinstein and his exit to Ring of Honor. And at different times, TNA had like a hokey pokey relationship with Ring of Honor. And when they did allow talent to appear, sometimes, well, creative would have to be discussed. I'm bringing this up because on the very night that TNA debuts on Spike, we have Kenta Kobashi make a Ring of Honor appearance against Samoa Joe, and he pins Samoa Joe. And obviously it's Kenta Kobashi. He's not a regular, but Kenta beat one of your top stars, a guy that you're going to position as an unbeatable monster in TNA. Was that creative discussed at all in advance? Was it on your radar, or was it given a pass because Kenta held so much credibility and respect within the business?
And see, stuff like this, I don't have the exact recall. Here's what I am positive of. And look, there may be extenuating circumstances here and there, but I'm a, third generation promoter. Prior to Spike TV, essentially the buck stopped with us, that, hey, we're the ones that are making the decision. And so I found it, and I had these conversations with Dallas and Dixie and whoever else. I found it very, very difficult prior to Spike to say, hey, we're offering these guys, let's just say, 4 or 5 days a month. And then we're going to tell them they can or can't go for work for other promoters. And then on top of that, we're going to tell the promoter how to book our talent. It just, it didn't pass my smell test. It didn't pass the mustard test. That didn't make sense. Of course, AJ or Joe or, the James Storm, Chris Harris, Eric Young, that nucleus, Bobby Roode, that nucleus we had, maybe some side conversations, it would go without saying, hey man, and they knew that. Let's protect your character, but you really didn't even have to have those, because in a Ring of Honor promoter, if you just, hypothetically speaking, beat AJ Styles every time you bring him, you're probably not going to let you're probably going to run AJ off, and TNA won't have to step in. So there was no, discussion on this Kenta match that in my recollection at all. The thing that radically changed was, okay, now they're not just TNA entertainment talent, they're Spike TV talent. And they were very aware, and it was brought to their attention back in those days, the DVD days. And, when Spike gets out the checkbook, writes you a weekly check, and they're investing, yes, in the brand, but they're really investing in the talent that they're putting on TV. And so that changed everything. We were very aware, and we had to start migrating the contracts more, that, hey man, we got to be aware of this and that. Again, when I look back on the growing pains, and the growing pains, and until I was out of power, they were, you just had new, different issues every day. And look, no matter what level you're going to have that, but we didn't have any specific conversation on the Kenta match with Joe at all.
SaveWithConrad.com. My name's Daryl. Came from Massachusetts and I moved to Wisconsin. And there's a lot of people that might be asking, why go with Conrad? Why go with Supreme Lending? And let me tell you something, brother. I think about the credentials, the tag team partner that I'd be working with. First of all, we got the Podfather himself, Conrad. How can you go wrong with that? And then also go on to SaveWithEric.com, which, you know, who else could have kicked Vince's ass for 83 consecutive weeks? You can't beat that duo right there. But they did bring a secret weapon, and I didn't realize this because this was not advertised. I worked closely with Larry the Axe Thompson. And let me tell you, with all the stress with moving across the country with a large family that I have, it was reassuring to know that I had the enforcer at my back, handling questions from the other side of sellers, the other side with trying to find the right prices. He took care of all that. All I had to do was keep my eye on the prize and make it there to Wisconsin. They were absolutely fantastic. They checked in on me, especially Francis, very patient with me. I don't go through this process all the time, so I trusted the experts. I was able to call them. They called me if they had questions, and it felt like it was a personal arrangement. There was even a point in which, from the seller side, they wanted something else that wasn't part of the norm. Francis straight up told me, hey, we're loyal to you. We'll do whatever you want to do, and we'll make sure that you guys are taken care of. They came through. I made it to the dream. I'm the champion of my own destiny here. They were able to help pave the way for me and my family. I couldn't be more happy with the results. I went from having less than an acre to now 20 acres worth of land. They made that dream a reality. I'm Daryl, and I'm living in Friendship, Wisconsin, in my dream home, thanks to SaveWithConrad.com.
NMLS number 21298, equal housing lender. SaveWithConrad.com.